The mathematics refused to cooperate. Daniel Reed stared at the holographic display floating above his workbench, watching numbers cascade down the screen like a waterfall of failure. Each calculation brought the same result. The electromagnetic coils would tear themselves apart at the velocities he needed. 3 years of work, and physics kept saying no. Around him, the research facility hummed with activity. New Harvest Colony existed for one purpose: to build weapons that would make the galaxy take humanity seriously. 600 engineers, physicists, and material scientists worked in this complex, hidden beneath kilometers of rock on a world nobody cared about. The Galactic Council thought humans were barely capable of spaceflight. Let them think that. Still fighting the heat problem? Dr. Amara Singh approached with 2 cups of something that smelled vaguely like coffee, but definitely wasn't. The colony synthesizers did their best with local materials. Heat, structural integrity, power consumption, and the minor detail that our projectiles keep vaporizing before they leave the barrel. Daniel accepted the cup anyway. Other than that, everything's perfect. Amara laughed, but it sounded tired. They were all tired. Show me. Daniel pulled up the simulation. A tungsten rod, shaped like a spear, accelerated through a series of electromagnetic rings. The numbers climbed: 1,000 meters per second, 5,000, 10,000. Then at 15,000 meters per second, the projection turned red. The barrel warped. The projectile broke apart. The whole system failed. "We need it faster," Daniel said. 20,000 meters per second minimum. Preferably faster. At those speeds, kinetic energy becomes devastating. But every material we've tested just can't handle the stress. What if we're thinking about this wrong? Amara manipulated the hologram, slowing down the simulation. Look at where the failure starts. It's not the coils themselves. It's the support structure between them. The frame. Daniel leaned closer. She was right. The electromagnetic rings could theoretically handle the power. But the titanium framework holding them in place buckled under the magnetic forces. "We've tried every alloy in the database." "Every alloy other species use," Amara corrected. "What about the new composites from Earth? The ones they developed for the deep ocean mining rigs?" Daniel pulled up the specifications. Carbon titanium weave, designed to handle incredible pressure and temperature swings. It was heavier than what they'd been using, but the tensile strength made his eyes widen. This might actually work. Might? Give me 6 hours. Daniel was already pulling up the redesign interface. And another one of whatever this drink is supposed to be. The hours blurred together. Daniel barely noticed when Amara left and returned with actual food. The new framework changed everything. Heavier, yes, but the simulation stayed green as the numbers climbed. 15,000 meters per second. 18,000. 20,000. The barrel held. The projectile stayed intact. At 25,000 meters per second, something beautiful happened. The math transformed from impossible to inevitable. At those velocities, a small tungsten rod carried more kinetic energy than most conventional explosives. The projectile wouldn't just penetrate armor. It would punch through a ship like the ship wasn't even there. "Amara." Daniel's voice came out as a whisper. "Amara, look at this." She studied the numbers, then rechecked them. Her hands moved faster, running independent calculations. When she looked up, her expression mixed excitement with something close to fear. "This is weaponizable. This is revolutionary. Daniel, at these velocities there's no defense. Energy shields are designed to deflect plasma and lasers. They don't stop solid matter. And anything physical strong enough to stop this projectile would need to be so massive it couldn't move." Daniel saved the simulation and locked it behind 3 layers of encryption. "We need to talk to Commander Hale." Commander Oren Hale reviewed their work in silence. The military liaison for Project Longshot had seen hundreds of proposals, but his expression suggested this one was different. He ran the simulation 5 times, changing variables, testing edge cases. Every time the results held. How long to build a prototype? Holly finally asked. Full scale? 4 months if we push hard. Daniel pulled up the construction timeline. We'll need authorization to requisition the new framework materials from Earth. You'll have it. Holly closed the hologram. But understand what you're creating here. If this works, it changes everything. The galactic balance of power, human standing in the Council, all of it shifts. We're just building a better weapon, Amara said quietly. No, Holly shook his head. You're building the weapon that proves humanity deserves respect. Right now, we're a joke to most species. Too new, too primitive, too aggressive. They think we're dangerous children playing with plasma torches we barely understand. This shows them we understand physics better than they do. Daniel thought about that. Humanity had joined the galactic community barely 20 years ago. Their faster-than-light drives were licensed technology, not invented. Their ships were small. Their weapons were conventional. Every treaty negotiation involved condescending aliens explaining how things work to the ignorant humans. When do we test it? Daniel asked. Soon. Hale's expression turned grim. The Krill Dominion is making aggressive moves near our border colonies. They think we're easy prey. Warlord Gresk has been demanding we cede 3 systems to their control. The diplomats are stalling, but intelligence suggests he's assembling a fleet. How long do we have? Gresk likes to make examples. He'll strike when he thinks it will humiliate us most. Probably within 6 months. So you have 4 months to build this railgun, and we have 2 months to teach our people how to use it. Holly stood. I'll authorize emergency resources. Build it fast, build it right, and build it deadly. When the Krill come, I want them to regret ever underestimating humanity. After Holly left, Daniel and Amara sat in silence. Through the facility windows, they could see New Harvest's red sun setting over rocky hills. This world was empty before humans arrived, worthless to the galaxy. Now it would birth the weapon that changed everything. Do you think this is right? Amara asked. Building something this destructive? Daniel considered the question carefully. I think the galaxy understands one language above all others: strength. We can be peaceful, diplomatic, reasonable. But none of that matters if they don't respect us. This earns respect, or fear. Sometimes they're the same thing. Daniel pulled up the schematics again. Let's build it. Then pray we never have to use it. But deep down, he knew they would. The galaxy was about to learn a hard lesson about underestimating humanity. Lieutenant Grace Park had fired weapons before, but never one that could rewrite history. She sat in the gunnery station aboard the orbital platform, her hands resting on controls that looked deceptively simple. 3 months of training had prepared her for this moment. 3 months of simulations, calculations, and lectures about responsibility. Now the real thing waited, and her mouth felt dry despite the water she kept drinking. The platform itself was new, built specifically to house the railgun. From the outside, it looked like any other human defense station, deliberately unremarkable. Inside, it was something else entirely. The weapon stretched through the center of the structure, a tunnel of electromagnetic coils that hummed with barely contained power. Capacitor banks the size of buildings stored enough electricity to run a small city. All of it focused on one purpose: throwing a piece of metal faster than anything in the galaxy. Capacitors at 90%, reported the technician to her left. His name was Sam Foster, and his job was to make sure the weapon didn't destroy itself when it fired. 95. Full charge in 30 seconds. Grace studied her targeting display. The Krill fleet hung in space 200,000 kilometers away, exactly where Admiral Tanaka predicted they would wait. 12 warships, each one larger than the biggest human vessel. Warlord Gresk had sent them as intimidation, a show of force meant to make humanity surrender without fighting. The Krill were reptilian warriors who respected only strength. Diplomacy meant nothing to them. All systems green, Sam announced. Capacitors at full charge. Weapon ready to fire. Grace activated the communication channel. Admiral, this is Weapons Station Alpha. We have target lock on the flagship. Awaiting authorization. Admiral Hiroshi Tanaka's voice came through calm and steady. Confirmed, Lieutenant. You are authorized to fire when ready. Make it count. Make it count. Grace almost laughed at the understatement. She would get one shot before the Krill fleet reacted. One chance to prove that humanity's new weapon actually worked. One opportunity to show the galaxy that humans were not prey. Her targeting computer displayed the Krill flagship, a massive vessel bristling with plasma cannons. The computer calculated distance, relative velocity, projected course changes. It predicted where the ship would be in 4 seconds, because that was how long the projectile would take to cross the distance. 4 seconds at 15,000 kilometers per second. The math was simple, but the reality felt impossible. Target locked, Grace said, more to herself than anyone else. Her finger hovered over the firing control. She thought about Daniel Reed, the engineer who built this monster. She thought about Amara Singh, the physicist who made it possible. She thought about every human who had been dismissed, ignored, or insulted by the galaxy's older civilizations. Then she thought about the Krill fleet, and what they would do if allowed to continue. The conquered worlds, the destroyed colonies, the species enslaved or exterminated. Warlord Gresk was not here to negotiate. He was here to take what he wanted, and he expected humanity to bend or break. Grace pressed the firing control. The platform shuddered. Every light dimmed as the capacitors discharged in a fraction of a second. Electromagnetic coils activated in sequence, each one adding velocity to the tungsten projectile racing through the barrel. The sound was like thunder compressed into a single moment, a crack that resonated through the entire structure. Then silenced. Grace watched her display. The projectile was invisible to normal sensors, too small and too fast to track easily. But her targeting computer showed its path, a straight line from the platform to the Krill flagship. 4 seconds. The longest 4 seconds of her life, aboard the storm of blades. Warlord Gresk studied the human, defensive positions with contempt. The humans had evacuated their civilian ships and positioned their small fleet between his forces and their colony worlds. It was almost admirable, this refusal to surrender. It would make the conquest more satisfying. Warlord, sensors detect an anomalous reading, his weapons officer reported. High-velocity object inbound. Gresk glanced at the display. The computer showed a projectile traveling at impossible speeds. Sensor malfunction. Nothing physical moves that fast. Recalibrate and scan again. Sir, the object is still approaching. Impact in 2 seconds. Impossible. Our shields will deflect any kinetic weapon they could possibly launch. Gresk dismissed the warning. Humans were primitive. They used bullets and missiles like children. His shields could stop plasma traveling at light speed. Some metal slug was nothing. The projectile hit the storm of blades, amidships at 15,000 kilometers per second. At those velocities, matter behaved strangely. The tungsten rod didn't penetrate the shield because the shield wasn't designed to stop solid objects at relativistic speeds. It didn't explode on impact because there was no time for chemical reactions. The projectile simply transferred its kinetic energy into the ship in a fraction of a microsecond. The result was catastrophic. The storm of blades didn't explode in the traditional sense. The impact point simply ceased to exist, vaporized by friction heating measured in millions of degrees. The shockwave propagated through the ship faster than the structural supports could respond. Metal tore. Systems failed. The mighty flagship broke into 3 large pieces and hundreds of smaller fragments. All moving in different directions from the violence of the impact, the projectile continued through the debris field, barely slowed. It struck a destroyer position behind the flagship, punching through engines and reactors. That ship died more slowly, bleeding atmosphere and fire into space. A frigate attempting to evade caught debris from the flagship. The sharp fragments, traveling at orbital velocities, shredded its hull. In 4 seconds, one shot had crippled or destroyed 3 warships. Grace stared at her display, not quite believing what she was seeing. The Krill flagship simply wasn't there anymore. Where a warship had been, now there was only an expanding cloud of debris. Her hands shook on the controls. "Direct hit," Sam whispered beside her. Holy stars, it actually worked. The remaining Krill ships broke formation. Their sensors had finally processed what happened. 9 warships that had come to intimidate humanity now fled in panic, their weapons never fired. They had seen the impossible, a single shot that destroyed their flagship and taught them fear. Admiral Tanaka's voice came through the communication channel, heavy with emotion. "Well done, Lieutenant. Stand down and secure the weapon. I think we've made our point." Grace slowly released the firing controls. Her whole body felt numb. She had just killed thousands of Krill warriors with one trigger pull. She had just changed human history. She had just shown the galaxy that humanity could bite back. Around her, the platform crew remained silent, each person processing what they had witnessed. Outside, the debris field continued expanding, a monument to the end of one era and the beginning of another. Somewhere in the galaxy, sensors had detected the energy signature. Soon, everyone would know what happened here. Soon, the entire galaxy would understand that humanity had built something revolutionary. A weapon that made shields useless and armor meaningless. A weapon that proved humans understood physics better than civilizations that had traveled the stars for millennia. Grace looked at her hands. They had stopped shaking. She felt different now, changed by what she had done. She had fired the shot that shook the galaxy, and nothing would ever be the same. News traveled faster than light in the galactic community, and bad news traveled fastest of all. Within 6 hours of the Krill flagship's destruction, every major civilization knew something unprecedented had happened. Within 12 hours, they had the footage. Within a day, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session. Ambassador Patricia Hayes walked through the council chambers with measured steps. She had been humanity's representative for 3 years, and in that time, she had grown accustomed to condescension. The other ambassadors treated her like a student who needed constant instruction. They smiled politely while dismissing human concerns. They voted against human proposals without serious consideration. Today would be different. The chamber itself was designed to intimidate. 50 species maintained permanent seats, arranged in a semicircle that rose toward a domed ceiling. Each delegation sat behind desks equipped with translation technology and holographic displays. At the center, a platform waited for whoever needed to address the council. Patricia had stood on that platform many times, her words falling on deaf ears. Today, they would listen. High Counselor Drenth called the session to order. The avian diplomat's feathers were ruffled, a sign of agitation in his species. We convene to address the incident in human border space. Ambassador Hayes, please explain what your government has done. Patricia walked to the central platform. Every eye in the chamber followed her. Some showed curiosity. Some showed fear. Good. 3 days ago, a Krill fleet entered human territory and demanded we surrender 3 colony worlds. We declined. Warlord Gresk responded by positioning 12 warships in an attack formation. We defended ourselves. By destroying a flagship and crippling multiple vessels with a single shot, Drenth interrupted. How is this possible? Our weapons experts have reviewed the sensor data. The energy signatures suggest a kinetic weapon traveling at velocities that should be impossible. Not impossible, Patricia corrected gently. Just difficult. We call it a railgun. Electromagnetic acceleration of a dense projectile to relativistic speeds. The physics are well understood. We simply engineered a working solution. A murmur ran through the chamber. The Meridian Commonwealth's representative, a crystalline being named Vryn, spoke up. Our civilization has existed for 12,000 years. We have never achieved such velocities with kinetic weapons. The energy requirements alone should be prohibitive. Only if you're trying to power an entire ship with the same system, Patricia explained. We built dedicated platforms. All the power, all the structure, everything focused on the weapon itself. It's not efficient for general warfare, but for defensive positions. It's devastating. It's barbaric, snapped the representative from the Andali Union. Kinetic weapons are crude. Dangerous to navigation, impossible to recall once fired. This is exactly why civilized species moved to energy-based warfare. Patricia smiled, and it was not a friendly expression. With respect, Counselor, your species moved to energy weapons because you could. Humanity developed in a harsher environment. We learned to perfect what we had before moving to what we wanted. In this case, that meant understanding kinetic energy better than anyone else. Drenth spread his wings, a gesture calling for order. Regardless of the method, the result is concerning. One human platform destroyed multiple warships. This represents a significant shift in military capability. The Council must consider the implications. The implications are simple, Patricia said. Humanity will no longer be an easy target. We will defend our territories with whatever means necessary. If that concerns the Council, perhaps the Council should reconsider its failure to address Krill aggression over the past decade. The chamber erupted in competing voices. Some delegates supported Patricia's point. Others demanded restrictions on human weapons development. A few called for sanctions. Drenth struggled to restore order, his voice barely audible over the chaos. Finally, Vryn spoke, and her crystalline voice cut through the noise like a bell. Perhaps we focus on the wrong question. Ambassador Hayes, does humanity intend to use these railguns offensively? Patricia met the crystalline being's multifaceted gaze. We intend to use them defensively. But understand this, we will not wait to be attacked. If a hostile fleet positions itself in attack formation near our worlds, we will consider that an act of war. We will strike first. We will strike hard. And we will ensure that anyone who threatens human lives regrets that decision. That is unacceptable, Drenth declared. Preemptive strikes violate the non-aggression protocols. So does positioning a fleet to intimidate a weaker power into surrender, Patricia countered. Yet the Krill have done this 17 times in the past 5 years. The Council did nothing. Now humanity has made it clear that we are not a weaker power. If that bothers the Council, I suggest the Council address the real problem. Aggressive species who believe might makes right. Vryn tilted her head, light refracting through her crystalline structure. You make a fair point, Ambassador. The Krill have been a concern for many years. Perhaps your demonstration will encourage more peaceful behavior. Or it will encourage an arms race, another delegate shouted. If humanity can build these weapons, others will try. The galaxy will become more dangerous, not less. Patricia had expected this argument. The galaxy is already dangerous. The difference is that now, the danger doesn't fall solely on small, young civilizations like humanity. If other species develop railgun technology, good. Maybe then everyone will think twice before threatening their neighbors. Mutually assured destruction has prevented many wars throughout history. It has also caused catastrophic conflicts, Drenth observed. Only when one side believed they could win, Patricia replied. When everyone knows the cost is too high, peace becomes the logical choice. Humanity offers that logic to the galaxy. We will share our technology with species that commit to defensive use. We will license the designs, provide training, and ensure that smaller civilizations can defend themselves. The chamber fell silent. Patricia had just offered something unprecedented: voluntary technology transfer to level the galactic playing field. The implications were staggering. You would arm your potential enemies? Drenth asked, disbelief clear in his voice. We would arm our potential allies, Patricia corrected. The galaxy has two paths forward. One where humanity hoards this technology and becomes a target for everyone who fears us. Another where we share it responsibly and build a new balance of power. I know which future I prefer. Vrin's crystalline structure pulsed with thought. This is a generous offer, Ambassador. But it comes with conditions, I assume. Only one, Patricia said. Every species that receives this technology must agree to the same terms. Defensive use only, shared inspection protocols, and mutual defense pacts. If one of us is attacked, all of us respond. Not as individual nations, but as a true galactic community. You propose an alliance, Vrin said slowly, built around mutual defense and shared military capability. I propose we stop pretending we're not all in this together, Patricia replied. Humanity just proved we can build weapons that change everything. We're offering to share that change in a way that makes everyone safer. Or you can refuse, and we'll build them alone, and the galaxy can wonder when we'll use them offensively. Your choice, counselors. Drenth looked around the chamber, reading the mood. Fear was fading, replaced by calculation. Patricia had offered something valuable and done it in a way that made refusal seem foolish. The council will need time to consider this proposal. Take your time, Patricia said. But understand that human military production continues regardless of your decision. In 6 months, we'll have 20 railgun platforms operational. In a year, 50. We're building them whether you join us or oppose us. I'd rather build them with you. She left the platform and returned to her seat. Around her, delegates whispered urgently, consulting with their governments. Patricia had rolled the dice. Either the galaxy would accept humanity's offer and create a new alliance, or they would unite against the human threat. Either way, humanity would never again be dismissed as primitive children playing with fire they didn't understand. The galaxy was changing, and humanity had forced that change. Now they would see if the old powers could adapt, or if they would fight against inevitable progress. Patricia suspected she already knew the answer. The military academy on Tefros had trained officers for 300 years, teaching strategy and tactics to dozens of species. General Kira Stone stood before its most advanced warfare class, the first human ever invited to lecture at the prestigious institution. 200 students from 40 different civilizations watched her with varying degrees of skepticism. They had all seen the footage of the Krill flagship. They all had questions. Kira activated the holographic display. Warfare is mathematics. Energy, mass, velocity, distance. Every weapon we've ever built obeys the same physical laws. The question is not what laws exist, but how we choose to apply them. She pulled up a simple equation. Kinetic energy equals 1/2 mass times velocity squared. This is basic physics. Every species here learned this equation before they left their home world. But watch what happens when we push the variables to extremes. The display showed a small tungsten projectile, then calculated its kinetic energy at different velocities. At 1,000 meters per second, the energy was modest. At 10,000, significant. At 15,000 meters per second, the numbers became frightening. Velocity is squared in the equation. Double the speed, and you quadruple the energy. Triple it, and you get 9 times the destructive power. The math is elegant and brutal. A student raised a tentacle. But General, the energy required to reach those speeds is enormous. How do humans generate such power? We don't generate it all at once, Kira explained. We store it. Capacitor banks charge over several minutes, then discharge in a fraction of a second. The weapon itself adds almost no mass to our platforms. The power systems, however, are massive. It's a trade-off. We sacrifice rapid firing rates for devastating single shots. Another student, this one from a species that resembled an armored bear, spoke up. Our defensive shields can stop plasma traveling at light speed. Why would kinetic weapons be different? Kira smiled. She had expected this question. Because your shields were designed for energy weapons, not matter. Plasma is charged particles that can be deflected by electromagnetic fields. Lasers can be refracted by gravitational lensing. But a solid object traveling at relativistic speeds. Your shields might as well not exist. The projectile has too much momentum to deflect, and it's not charged, so electromagnetic fields don't affect it. The bear-like student looked troubled. Then what defense exists? Don't be where the projectile is aimed, Kira said bluntly. The only defense is mobility. If you're moving unpredictably, targeting becomes difficult. But our computers predict movement patterns with frightening accuracy. They analyze thrust vectors, ship mass, acceleration curves. They calculate where you'll be in the time it takes the projectile to arrive. If you move predictably, you die. She changed the holographic display to show a simulation. A ship attempted to evade a railgun shot using random thrust patterns. The targeting computer adjusted its aim, and the projectile still hit. The ship tried again with different evasion patterns. The computer adapted. Only when the ship burned its engines continuously in random directions did it successfully evade, and even then barely. As you can see, Kira continued, evasion requires burning huge amounts of fuel. You can't maintain it indefinitely. Eventually, you have to choose. Keep running and exhaust your fuel, or stop and become an easy target. It's a losing proposition either way. A crystalline student spoke with a voice like chimes. This seems less like warfare and more like execution. Where is the skill, the strategy? The skill is in positioning, Kira replied. Railguns are fixed installations or mounted on ships that must orient themselves carefully. They can't track fast-moving targets at close range. They excel at medium to long-range engagement, where their targeting computers have time to calculate solutions. The strategy is in forcing your enemy to fight at the range where you're strongest. She pulled up a new display showing a hypothetical battle. If you're facing human railgun positions, you have several options. You can try to close distance quickly, getting inside their optimal firing range. You can use overwhelming numbers, accepting losses to ensure some ships survive. You can deploy decoys and electronic warfare to confuse targeting systems. Or you can simply refuse to engage and find another target. What about developing our own railgun technology? Asked another student. Kira nodded. Several species are trying. They'll discover what we did. The weapon itself is simple, but the engineering is hard. You need materials that can handle the electromagnetic forces without tearing apart. You need power systems that can store and discharge massive amounts of energy safely. You need targeting computers with enough processing power to predict complex movements. Humanity spent 3 years perfecting these elements. Others might do it faster, learning from our example. Or they might struggle with the same problems we faced. She paused, letting that sink in. But here's what matters. The galaxy now understands that energy weapons are not the only path. For centuries, you've all assumed that plasma and lasers represented the pinnacle of weapons technology. Humanity proved that old concepts, perfected with modern engineering, can be just as deadly. Maybe more so. The lecture continued for another hour. Kira walked the students through simulations, case studies, and tactical scenarios. She explained humanity's defensive doctrine, their willingness to share technology, and their philosophy of deterrence through demonstrated capability. By the end, the skepticism in the room had transformed into something else, respect mixed with concern. After the lecture, a senior instructor approached Kira. His species was aquatic, and he wore an environmental suit filled with liquid. "General Stone, your presentation was enlightening and troubling. You've shown us that our assumptions about modern warfare were incomplete." "That was my intention," Kira said. "Humanity wants to be part of the galactic community, but we won't be the weakest member. We won't be prey for aggressive species who view us as easy targets." The railgun ensures we're taken seriously. "You've certainly achieved that," the instructor agreed. "But you've also started something that cannot be stopped. Other species will develop these weapons. The arms race has begun." "The arms race was always happening," Kira countered. "The difference is that now it's transparent. Before, species with superior technology bullied those without. The Krill conquered 3 civilizations in the past decade because they had better plasma weapons. Nobody stopped them. Now maybe they'll think twice. Maybe everyone will." The instructor's suit rippled thoughtfully. "Or maybe everyone will simply kill each other more efficiently." Kira didn't have a good answer for that. She had spent her entire career preparing for war, hoping to prevent it through strength. The railgun was the ultimate expression of that philosophy. Build something so destructive that using it becomes unthinkable. But what if it didn't work? What if the galaxy descended into an arms race that ended in catastrophic conflict? She left the academy with those questions haunting her. Outside, Tefros's twin suns were setting, painting the sky in shades of purple and gold. It was beautiful, this world where so many species learned the art of war together. Kira hoped that education would lead to peace, not more efficient destruction. Her communicator chimed. A message from Earth. 5 more species had accepted humanity's offer to license railgun technology. They would sign mutual defense pacts and agree to inspection protocols. The alliance was growing. Maybe, Kira thought, maybe this would work. Maybe shared strength could build shared peace. Or maybe she had just helped arm the galaxy for its own destruction. Time would tell. For now, she had more lectures to give, more officers to train, and more nations to teach the mathematics of devastation. The galaxy was learning, and humanity was the teacher. She just hoped they were teaching the right lessons. 8 months after the shot that changed everything, Daniel Reed walked through a shipyard that shouldn't exist. The facility orbited a gas giant in neutral space, built jointly by humans and 3 other species. Scaffolding surrounded a vessel that represented something unprecedented, a warship designed from the beginning to combine technologies from multiple civilizations. The ship had no name yet, though the crews called it Unity by default. Its human-designed railgun ran through the central spine. Alien shield generators, far more efficient than anything humans had developed, protected the hull. The faster-than-light drive came from the Meridian Commonwealth, their best model. Weapon targeting used a hybrid system that combined human prediction algorithms with crystalline computing from Vrin's people. Daniel's role was to ensure all these systems worked together without destroying each other. It was harder than anyone had anticipated. "The power coupling is failing again," reported Dr. Amara Singh, reviewing data on a handheld device. She had joined the project 3 months ago, leaving her position on New Harvest. "The alien shield generators draw too much power when they activate. The railgun capacitors can't charge fully. Can we increase the reactor output?" Daniel asked, studying the ship's skeleton through the viewport. "We're already running at 105% of rated capacity. Push harder and we risk core instability." Amara pulled up a hologram showing power distribution throughout the ship. The problem is integration. Each component was designed for different power systems. Making them work together is like speaking 3 languages simultaneously. Daniel rubbed his tired eyes. Integration problems had plagued the project from the start. Humans thought in terms of overwhelming single strikes. The Meridian designed for sustained energy output. Vrin's people built redundant, interconnected systems. Combining these philosophies was technically possible, but culturally complicated. What if we sacrifice shield strength during railgun charging? Daniel suggested. Drop the shields to minimal power, divert everything to the weapon, then bring them back up after firing? That leaves us vulnerable for 3 minutes during charge cycle, Amara pointed out. Any enemy could exploit that window. Only if they know about it, Daniel said. And only if they're close enough to take advantage. The railgun is a long-range weapon. We fire from distances where 3 minutes of vulnerability doesn't matter. Amara considered this, running calculations. It could work. But you're essentially admitting that we can't have both systems at full power simultaneously. That's going to disappoint people who expected this ship to be invincible. Nothing is invincible, Daniel replied. But something that can hit hard and defend well, even if not at the same time, is still formidable. It's about choosing when to be strong in different ways. They implemented the power management solution over the next week. The programming was complex, requiring precise timing to shift energy between systems without causing cascading failures. But eventually, it worked. The railgun could charge fully, and the shields could operate at maximum strength, just not simultaneously. Other integration challenges proved more cultural than technical. The human crew wanted aggressive tactics, closing on enemies and overwhelming them with firepower. The Meridian officers preferred cautious approaches, using superior speed to choose engagement ranges. Vrin's people thought both approaches were too rigid, advocating for fluid adaptation to changing circumstances. Captain Beth Warren, chosen to command Unity, called a meeting of the senior staff. She was a veteran of human naval operations, experienced but flexible enough to work with alien crew members. We need to establish a unified tactical doctrine. Our current approach is too fractured. In combat, we'll tear ourselves apart arguing instead of fighting. A Meridian officer named Petros spoke first. His species resembled tall, graceful birds. Our doctrine emphasizes preservation of the ship and crew. We do not sacrifice lives for marginal gains. Human tactics seem reckless by comparison. We call it decisive, countered a human tactical officer. Hesitation in combat gets people killed. Better to strike hard and end the fight quickly. Vrin's representative, a crystalline being named Tal, chimed in. Both perspectives have merit and flaws. Perhaps Unity should not try to be human, Meridian, or crystalline. Perhaps it should be something new entirely. Warren nodded slowly. Explain. Human railguns excel at long range, Tal said. Meridian drives excel at speed and maneuverability. Crystalline shields excel at adapting to different threats. What if we build tactics around these complementary strengths, instead of trying to force one species doctrine on everyone? The idea sparked debate, but gradually a new approach emerged. Unity would fight at long range, using its speed to maintain optimal distance. The railgun would provide devastating firepower, while shields adapted to whatever return fire the enemy managed. If overwhelmed, the ship would disengage using superior faster-than-light capabilities. It wasn't pure human aggression, Meridian caution, or crystalline flexibility. It was a synthesis. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, other species struggled with railgun development. Some achieved working prototypes. Others faced the same engineering challenges humanity had overcome. A few gave up, deciding the technology was too expensive or difficult to maintain. The Krill Dominion took a different approach. Unable to match human railgun technology quickly, they focused on counters. Warlord Gresk rebuilt his fleet around small, fast vessels that could swarm targets. If humans needed time to aim and fire, he would give them too many targets to hit. If railgun platforms were fixed positions, he would attack from multiple vectors simultaneously. Intelligence reports reached Admiral Tanaka showing krill ship production increasing dramatically. They were building hundreds of small raiders, each barely worth a railgun shot, but collectively representing a serious threat. The krill had learned from their defeat and adapted. Tanaka shared the intelligence with the council. Warlord Gresk is preparing for another confrontation. He believes numbers will overcome our technological advantage. He might be right. How many railgun platforms do we have operational? Asked Vryn during a secure communication. 37, Tanaka replied, with another 20 under construction. But each platform can only engage one target at a time. If Gresk sends 200 ships, we'll be overwhelmed through simple arithmetic. Then we need force multipliers, Vryn said. Unity is nearly complete. Perhaps it's time to accelerate the timeline. A mobile railgun platform could be worth 10 fixed positions. Tanaka agreed. Unity would launch ahead of schedule, its integration problems solved enough to be functional if not perfect. They would conduct live-fire tests against drone targets, training the mixed-species crew to work as a unit. Then they would deploy to the krill border and wait, because everyone knew Gresk would come. His pride had been wounded by the first defeat. Krill culture demanded he restore his honor through victory or die trying. The question wasn't if he would attack, but when, and whether Unity would be ready. Daniel watched the ship undergo final preparations. It represented everything he had hoped for when he first designed the railgun, not just a weapon, but a catalyst for cooperation. Different species working together, combining their strengths to create something. None could build alone, but it also represented something he feared: the escalation of conflict. The krill were adapting. Soon others would too. The arms race he had started was accelerating. Eventually, someone would develop a counter to railguns. Then humans would need to innovate again. And again. The cycle would continue until something broke catastrophically. He hoped Unity would be enough to prevent that. A demonstration of cooperation strong enough to make further conflict pointless. But deep down, he suspected hope wasn't enough. The galaxy was changing, and change always came with a price. Humanity had paid part of that price already. The bill for the rest was still coming due. 1 year after Grace Park fired the shot that shook the galaxy, she found herself teaching at the Academy on New Harvest. The orbital platform where she had made history now served as a training facility, its railgun used for demonstrations rather than combat. Grace had been promoted twice and offered command positions, but she turned them all down. Teaching felt more important than fighting. Her current class consisted of 20 students from 7 different species. They watched footage of her famous shot, analyzing the targeting solution, the timing, the execution. Grace let the video play without commentary. She had seen it hundreds of times, and it never got easier. Lieutenant Park, a young human cadet named Riley, asked, "When you fired, did you know it would change everything?" Grace considered the question carefully. "I knew it would change something. I didn't know it would change everything. There's a difference. I was focused on the immediate tactical situation. Enemy fleet threatening human colonies. One chance to prove our weapon worked. The bigger implications came later. Do you regret it?" asked a Meridian student. "I regret that it was necessary," Grace replied. "I regret that thousands of krill died because their leader was too proud to retreat. I regret that my actions started an arms race that might end badly. But do I regret defending human worlds? No. Given the same situation, I'd make the same choice." She changed the display to show current galactic military deployments. Dozens of species now had railgun technology or were developing it. The krill had built their swarm fleet. Other civilizations pursued different counter-strategies. The balance of power remained fluid, with no single nation dominant. "This is the galaxy you'll serve in," Grace told her students. "Not the one where humanity was weak and ignored. Not the one where energy weapons were supreme. This new galaxy, where kinetic weapons matter again, where small nations can defend themselves, where cooperation sometimes outweighs individual strength. Your challenge is navigating this reality without making my mistakes." "What mistakes?" Riley asked. "Believing that one overwhelming demonstration would end conflict," Grace said quietly. "I thought if we showed the galaxy what we could do, everyone would back down. Instead, everyone armed up. I started something I couldn't finish with a single trigger pull. You'll have to live with the consequences." The class continued with tactical simulations. Grace watched her students work through scenarios, making decisions, learning from failures. Some showed natural talent. Others struggled but improved with practice. All of them carried the weight of knowing that their choices might reshape the galaxy just as hers had. After class, Grace walked to the observation deck. Through the transparent hull, she could see Unity conducting maneuvers nearby. The ship had completed its trials and been declared operational 6 months ago. It patrolled the border zones, a visible symbol of cross-species cooperation. 3 more ships were under construction, using the same hybrid design philosophy. Daniel Reed joined her at the viewport. He visited the academy regularly, consulting on technical matters and checking on his creation. "I heard your lecture. You're harder on yourself than necessary." "Am I?" Grace asked. "We changed the galaxy, Daniel. Is it better? Safer? Or did we just give everyone new ways to kill each other?" Daniel was quiet for a moment. "Both, probably. The Krill haven't attacked again. Neither have several other aggressive civilizations. Smaller nations now have defensive options they didn't before. That's good. But yes, the arms race is real. That's bad. I don't think we get one without the other. So we build weapons and hope people don't use them? We build weapons and work very hard to ensure people don't need to use them," Daniel corrected. "It's not perfect, but it's better than what we had. Before railguns, humanity was prey. Now we're partners. That matters." Grace wanted to believe him. She looked at Unity, imagining the mixed crew working together inside. Humans, Meridians, Crystallins, all serving on the same ship. That was unprecedented a year ago. Now it was normal. If weapons development had forced that cooperation, maybe the trade was worth it. Her communicator chimed. Admiral Tanaka wanted to speak with her. Grace accepted the call, and the Admiral's image appeared in hologram form. "Lieutenant Park, I have an assignment for you if you're interested. Command of one of the new hybrid ships. We're calling it the Endeavor. Mixed crew, same design as Unity, deploying to the frontier regions." Grace felt surprise and uncertainty in equal measure. "Sir, I thought I made it clear I prefer teaching." "You did," Tanaka agreed. "But you're also the only person who's fired a railgun in actual combat. That experience is valuable. The Endeavor needs a commander who understands both the weapon and the responsibility of using it. Someone who won't fire unless absolutely necessary, but won't hesitate when required. That's you. Can I think about it?" "Take a week," Tanaka said. "But Grace, understand this. The galaxy needs leaders who've seen what these weapons do. Not just in simulations, but for real. You carry that knowledge. It makes you valuable in ways you might not appreciate." The call ended. Grace stood at the viewport, considering the offer. Return to active service, command a ship, carry the weight of life and death decisions again. Or stay here, teaching others, hoping they learn from her experiences without needing to repeat them. Daniel watched her think. "What will you do?" "I don't know," Grace admitted. "Part of me wants to stay safe, train others, avoid more responsibility. But another part remembers why I joined the military in the first place. To protect people. If taking command protects people better than teaching, then maybe I should do it. There's no wrong answer, Daniel said. Teaching is protection too. So is leadership. You've already changed the galaxy once. Nobody can ask you to do it again. But Grace knew they would ask. The galaxy was still adjusting to the new reality humanity had created. It needed people who understood both strength and restraint. People who had held terrible power and chosen carefully when to use it. She thought about Riley, the young cadet, asking if she regretted her choice. In a week, Grace would give Admiral Tanaka her answer. Would she return to command, putting herself in position to make those choices again? Or would she stay at the academy, shaping the next generation? Outside, Unity completed its patrol route and prepared to jump to faster than light. The ship represented everything that had changed in the past year: cooperation, innovation, and the ever-present shadow of potential conflict. It was beautiful and dangerous in equal measure. Just like the railgun itself, Grace made her decision, though she wouldn't share it yet. She would take command of Endeavor. Not because she wanted the responsibility, but because someone who understood the weight of that responsibility needed to carry it. The galaxy had too many people willing to fire weapons without understanding consequences. It needed more people who had fired, who had seen the devastation, and who would do everything possible to avoid firing again. The shot that shook the galaxy was 1 year old. Its echoes would continue for decades, maybe centuries. Grace Park had fired it, and now she would live with it. Not hiding in teaching positions, but standing where the next crisis would require someone with her experience to make impossible choices. She hoped she would choose wisely. She hoped the galaxy would give her that chance. And she hoped that someday, the weapons humanity had built would gather dust from disuse. Monuments to a time when strength was necessary, but mercy proved stronger. Until then, she would serve. She would lead. She would remember every lesson her one shot had taught her, and she would ensure that the next generation understood those lessons before they ever needed to fire their own. The galaxy had changed. Now Grace would help decide what came next.